So will you guys go with me a moment to that little third grader? Can we just think about him for a moment? Just let our mind wander and wonder about this little boy who was alone. Wonder about if that was a regular thing for him. Because, the principal, what he said was the child found the corn dog in the back of the freezer. And the child prepared that for himself. Was he always alone? Did he not have anyone that was helping him care for his basic needs? And I really can't help but wonder if he actually cried out to God and he didn't even realize it on that weekend or prior to that. I mean, whether it was audible or if he just said something in the air or in his spirit. And according to Psalms 33, we know that God looks down and sees all of mankind. We know that God is looking down and he's seeing this little boy who's alone and who's hungry. And he finds a corn dog and he goes back to school on Monday. Did he need to see God? Did he need just a glimpse of God? And God knew that. And God, in his amazing ways, he moved on the heart of Jenny, who lived in Rockford and went to church in Byron Center. She probably didn't even realize why she was being so compelled to start hand to hand. She didn't go to church there, and this is usually a local church partners with the local school. But God laid it on her heart so much that she went to her pastor, a pastor 30 miles away, and said, well, I know we're already feeding about 100 kids in Byron Center, but I really feel called to feed some kids in Rockford. And if you caught what the principal said, he said that this meant something to him. He was not coached into saying that. This made an impression on him. What he said was that the pastor said, well, God didn't just tell us to feed kids in our own boundary, in our own neighborhood. And you see, even the principal caught a glimpse of God through what is happening. And that's what we're discovering is hand to hand isn't just giving our kids who need to see that they have a good father who loves them and cares for them, getting a glimpse of that. He is showing himself through you to school staff, to children who are going to school with their hand-to-hand kids. I don't know how many children have been rising up because they want to donate for the kids they go to school with. They're catching glimpses of this. Single moms who feel alone, they're catching glimpses of God. And I wonder, what if Jenny or Pastor Tim had said no? Can we let our minds go there for a moment? Because they started serving the kids last year. What if they said no because they were concerned about resources or feeding more kids or volunteers, how it's all going to happen, and they had said no? Well, for one, the little boy who only had a corn dog to eat, he still wouldn't have any food. He still would feel alone, and to me, most importantly, he still would not have a glimpse of how amazing the God in heaven is, who sees him and knows him, and he probably doesn't even understand it, but I believe through his Spirit, he's speaking to this young child's heart and letting him know that he is seen and known and loved. And now because of that, as he said, churches in Rockford have risen up, and they too are going to be feeding kids in every Rockford school. And I got to tell you, it gets better than that. This school district, and they have gone and talked to the board and presented, the school district has donated a portable classroom that they no longer use, that are all the churches together are going to come in and pack food and pray for the kids right on their premises. Do you think they caught a glimpse of God? Because we don't know where anyone stands spiritually, right? We don't know where any of our school staff, our board members of our schools, superintendents. And what if you would have said no? Volunteers, churches, pastors who are leading this in your church, what if you had said no? we can't do this. One more ministry, we're not going to do this. What children would not only be without food on the weekend, have a lessening of their anxiety because they know they're going to get that bag of food, but what children wouldn't see a glimpse of their good Father? And so I guess I want to focus this morning on what we are doing is such a bigger picture. Yes, we're feeding them. Yes, we're praying for them. But you are being the light in your own community. And as I drive past neighborhoods, and I'm in different communities at times, I wonder which kids are being fed through you. And I'm so thankful for each of you and the commitment you have and the passion. Jenny's just one that has grown this. There are so many of you in this room, and you know who you are. And even when you're just feeding one school, that's amazing because you put your all into it. And God sees and He knows. And know this, that passion you feel and the desire to feed these kids, it comes from Him. Because He knows that these children need to see God. I want to tell you that if you need to see a glimpse of God this morning, maybe there's something personal you're going through or something relational. Or maybe you're a new coordinator, and I've talked to some of you, and you are like, I am way in over my head. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm nervous. And can we just look around the room at each other a moment? I don't like these rows. We probably will have to have tables in a bigger room next time because I feel like this is too academic. But look around the room. Just look at each other. And I know it feels weird because you are seeing glimpses of God. And if I do say so, this isn't just a glimpse. This is a movement of God. Because only God can raise up 70-plus churches of 13 different denominations, and going into 97 schools. We will hit the 100 mark this year, feeding approximately 4,300. Only God can do that. And we are here to praise and thank Him for that. When I was a little girl, I would have received hand to hand. Some of you know my story. My mom worked 2 jobs. My dad wasn't really in the picture. And I felt alone a lot because I came home to an empty house before latchkey kid term ever existed. And I just know how that felt. And I know when I hear about how that little boy came to school and he was in an awful mood and he acted out, I can relate. In fact, I've never really told many people this story, but I remember feeling like a fish out of water in school sometimes because I'd go to school, and back then divorce wasn't very common, and I'd walk into the classroom and it looked as if all these kids had it all together. And we would have family nights and we would have open houses with the school, and I just always felt kind of less than. And I felt stupid because I didn't really have anyone helping me with my homework, and I hated projects, those kind of things. But I had a best friend, and that meant a lot to me. And her name, I'm going to call her Sue. And my best friend Sue, after we started hanging out a little bit, she invited me to her home on a Friday evening. And I remember I loved it. And we sat down with this whole family, and we ate dinner together. I remember the mom and the dad and the siblings, and that was something I was not accustomed to. And we had this huge spread of food. And I remember there was ice cream dessert with those little Rice Krispie things. That was a thing to make in the day, and you poured a little hot fudge on it. And I liked it so much, I asked for 2 pieces. Yeah. And so I went home on that Friday evening, and I came back on Monday. I was so happy. I had a best friend. I had just had the best time of my life. And I got to school, and Sue kept running away from me. And I couldn't understand why, because everything went so well Friday, and she told me I was her best friend, and she kept running away from me. And so we went into class. That was morning recess and lunch recess. I finally got her to stop. I said, "Why are you running away from me?" And she said, "Well, because my mommy said I can't hang out with you because your family is messed up, and it was rude of you to ask for 2 pieces of ice cream." Yeah, and I didn't know I'd get emotional as I was telling this story, but so I proceeded to go across the playground and pick on a girl who also had no friends. And I proceeded to coax her into a fist fight. Yeah, and I got my butt kicked because I was really little, and she basically threw me down and sat on me. And that was even more humiliating because all the kids kind of gathered and laughed. And my point is, I acted out aggressively because of what I had going on in here. And when we bring the bags of food, and these kids have this joy given to them, and they feel like they're not alone, what you're giving to them is so much bigger than what you maybe can even imagine. And you see, the church is why I'm here today, because we had a local small church who reached into our lives as a family. They loved us in spite of our messiness. They brought us food. I remember my Sunday school teachers. I remember finding Jesus Christ there and feeling just so hopeful after I found him and discovered him in my life. And I know the power of the church. And if that one little church could do that for me, how much more power and potential is sitting in this room right now? 13 different denominations, all of us just loving in the name of Jesus. Feeding kids, giving glimpses of our Heavenly Father. I know I needed those glimpses as a child, and they do too. So, we have a vision. There are more children out there who we cannot say no to. And I know for some of you, you were surprised we asked for a $200 suggested donation. And can I just say, if you can't give it, it's okay. But if you can give it, it's only $200 for some churches. You're giving other places. Our vision is for other Christ followers like you to rise up in their community and give glimpses of God, but also to feed and pray for our kids because they can't reach their God-given potential. God sees them all. He's created them. He's given them a potential. They can't reach it when they're hungry and they can't learn in school. They can't reach it when they're facing anxiety when Friday comes because they don't know what they're going to eat. And they can't reach it if they don't get glimpses of their good, good Father in heaven who loves them. And so our goal and our desire and what we feel God is calling us to is to go to more of kids in your schools. And we're working so hard trying to get more resources so that if you can only serve as a church 22 kids and there's 50 kids in your school, we're going to make it happen. And if I'm out asking for more donations from businesses, we're going to pass it on to you. But you need to know we also will go wherever God calls us. If there is one child in one school and we can find one church to take them, and this $200 helps us get there, we're going to go because that one child matters. And that one child should be able to reach their God-given potential. Just one final story, and this story, I'm actually going to show you a video. When I made our very first video for Hand to Hand, I was in conversation with a lady who shared this story with me, and she had wanted to start Hand to Hand. And so for 43 seconds, rather than me tell you the story, let's listen to it. A police officer was called to a school on a Friday, and it was a Friday in Michigan where there was a snow day. The police officer was told that there was someone trying to break into the school. And when he arrived, he found an 8-year-old child. And he asked the child, "Why are you breaking into the school?" And the child simply said, "Well, because I thought there was food here." He was used to going to school to receive his breakfast and his lunch. He woke up that morning and school was closed, and he did not know what he was going to eat. So the rest of that story, that church said no. And the rest of that story is that 8-year-old is probably 12 today. And I wonder, did I do enough? Did I try hard enough to get a church to feed that little boy who was so hungry he broke into a school because he didn't have any food at home and he was used to getting food at school? We are committed and driven and compelled, just as you are, to feed these kids, to reach into their lives, to show them the love of Christ. You know, God loved us so much, he gave his best. He gave Jesus. And none of us would be in this room if it weren't for what he's done for us. And we're going to do all we can to go and reach, and that is the vision. And so if your church is able, please know it's never for overhead. We've been blessed with no overhead with this office. The furniture's been donated. It is always to feed kids. Just know that if you're able, that's why we ask humbly for a $200 suggested donation. You know, it's interesting because the principal said on there that hand to hand has given the child the knowledge, the hope, the faith that someone is out there who is caring more for his needs. And he's seeing God. So thank you again for what you're doing. Here it is. Thank you. This is what the principal said, and I was amazed that he caught this. Hand to hand gives the student the knowledge, trust, and faith that someone out there is bigger than he is, who cares about him enough to meet his needs. And that's what hand to hand brings.